afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Battinto Batts, and I am a doctoral candidate in the School of Education and Human Development here at Hampton University. And you are here today for my final defense of my doctoral dissertation. It is entitled An Exploration of the Relationship Between Social Media Use and Engagement Among African American Student Leaders. I want to introduce my dissertation committee. My chair, Dr. Cassandra Herring. Joining us from Yale University, Dr. Rodney T. Cohen, Dr. Letizia Gambrell Boone, and Dr. Gerald Roy. Committee members, I want to thank each and every one of you for all of your work in preparing me for this step. You all each made me better, and you made my work better. Thank you very much. Also, there are many people in the audience today who I'm glad to see, and people who have supported me along the way. I want to thank you all. I would not be here at this point if it were not for you. Thank you so much. Social media, social networking sites. These sites were created roughly 16 years ago, back in 1997, 1998, as a means of connecting us to people with like interests, our family, or our colleagues. It creates an efficient means of sharing information with these people. It creates a network. Since their creation, the use has exploded, and there are now more than 1 billion users of social media or social networking sites worldwide. And as a result of this explosion of use, there are a number of researchers in higher education, including myself, who are interested in knowing how social media can be used in higher education. I can tell you as a professor, it can be annoying at times to sit in the class and you'll see a student with their cell phone out. It is likely that they could be checking social media, or they could be texting someone. If they're checking social media, it's likely that they're checking in on Twitter or Facebook. And they're spending a lot of time on social media. In some cases, up to 7 hours a day on social media. It's a lot of time. So going into this, I had some things that I wanted to know. With all of this time that students are spending on social media, are they using it at all for purposes that are related to the higher education environment? And then I wanted to know if they are using it for purposes related to the higher education environment, can social media then perhaps be used to leverage this ongoing issue of African American degree persistence? There's a gap, there's a disparity gap in African American persistence and degree attainment. Can social media be used to help to solve that problem? So those are some of the general questions that I had going into this. Because African American millennials, college-age students, are some of the most passionate users of social media. However, despite all of the research that I described to you earlier, very little research has been done thus far about the use of social media amongst African American college students. And that's where my study came in. Let me give you a little bit about the problem, the background of the problem, and explain it to you. We know, as I said, that African American students graduate from college at a rate less than their white peers. Some of the latest research says that there's a disparity of blacks, roughly 43%, compared to whites, 59.6%. Now, this is an ongoing issue. This isn't new. This has existed for decades. But finally, in 2012, the White House issued an executive order that said to higher education, to colleges and universities, that you need to do what you can to increase college access for African Americans and also increase college success. Persistence may be tied to engagement. This comes from several research studies that have been done. Several researchers, as I said here, have looked at the issue of engagement and how it ties to persistence. And engagement is critical because it brings social capital. And social capital is a term that you'll hear me refer to quite a bit throughout my study and my presentation. Social capital, the ability to get things done, who you know, and the ability to help you get tasks accomplished. In the higher education environment, homework, group assignments, organizing events, social capital. Social networking sites have been shown to enhance engagement amongst college students. And this comes to us from a number of researchers, but most prominent is Junko, who's done a lot of research into social media use in higher education. But despite the promise of social media and the possibility of it being an elixir for this ongoing issue, there is some reluctance amongst in higher education, amongst professors in particular, about social media, that it may be used to eliminate face-to-face interaction, which is still very, very important in the case of instruction. And then also, not everyone is familiar with all the features of social media, okay? And it can be distracting from academics. And then there's how do we control what people do on social media, their etiquette, how they behave. You'll hear me refer to later the issue of cyberbullying. And then in addition to the fact that there is a possibility for social media being used to address the ongoing degree disparity, very little, as I said, very little is known about the use of social media amongst African American millennials. And these, unfortunately, are the students who are most risk of dropping out of college. The National Survey of Student Engagement, which is a widely accepted instrument for measuring engagement, recommends that institutions make greater use of technology to engage African Americans. In addition to that, the National Research Center for College and University Admissions says that African American millennials or African American college students prefer to connect with their institutions by way of social media. And again, as I stated, Ellison and Junko say that social media sites are found to enhance student engagement. In addition, as I stated, African American millennials, according to the Pew Internet Research and Pew Internet and American Life Project, African American millennials are amongst the most passionate users of social media. Therefore, the purpose of my study is to investigate how students in leadership roles at an historically black institution utilize social media in academic and social activities. Now let me talk about why I decided to use African American students in leadership roles. Research says that students who are in leadership roles or co-curricular activities tend to be more engaged. Okay? In addition to that, historically black colleges have been shown to provide environments that are engaging to students. So what I've examined is students utilizing social media in a best case scenario. And I have proposed a model for how social media is used among students. In this model, a student can engage with social media and then enhance their engagement in the college environment, gain social capital, and because they gain social capital, they use social media more. Or it could go the other way. A student can use social media, gain social capital, become more engaged in the environment, and again come back. Or they could enter this model in search of social capital, use social media, and become more engaged. This relationship is ongoing. Okay? It's ongoing and does not stop. And again, a student can enter into this model at any given point. My theoretical framework. A lot of this is built on engagement theory. Aston proposed engagement theory. Initially he called it student involvement theory, but he changed it to student engagement theory. And it says that the amount of physical and psychological energy a student devotes to academic experience, that measures engagement. And then Pasquarelli and Tetrazzini came back and said that engagement has two major facets. That's in-class and out-of-class objectives. Okay, what you do in class and what you do out of class, your co-curricular activities. And then, building on that, again, Ellison and Junco said the social media websites have features and functions that are found to enhance the academic and co-curricular engagement. Social network theory. The basis of this theory basically says that a social network is a group of people that has resources embedded in it. Knowledge, capital, resources. That the people who are part of that network are able to tap and to utilize. And these are individuals coming together that the collection is stronger than the individual. And then Lynn offers the social capital theory that says by investing in these networks, that people develop more resources for social capital. So if you invest into a social network, if you become part of a social network, be it online or what have you, that you become more strengthened. Therefore, investigating how African American students in leadership roles utilize social media may provide findings that can be generalized to help to assist in the recruitment, retention, and degree attainment of all African American students. Now, some of my key terms. For the purposes of this study, the term African American, I use the term that's utilized by the United States Office of Management and Budget. Okay? Another key term is engagement. Again, I gave you that definition earlier. It's the amount of time and effort that students put into studies and other educationally purposeful activities. Provide you the definition of Facebook, historically black colleges and universities, Instagram, a social networking site that's growing in popularity, LinkedIn, millennials. This is important. Millennials, this is the population segment that we mostly see on college campuses. They were born between 1982 and 2004. These are the students we mostly see now, the traditional age student. Social capital, again, Lynn's definition. It's the definition of social media, social network theory, and Twitter. My methodology. I utilized a 14-question multiple choice survey adopted from Junco. It has been tested several times and has a Cronbach's alpha score of 0.80, so it's very, very strong in reliability, which means that if you utilize it, you can count on the results. It was administered via SurveyMonkey. I chose SurveyMonkey because it allows for wide distribution of a survey with strict adherence to IRB guidelines, which would be anonymity, secure data storage, and functionality with SPSS, which is used to do correlational analysis. My sample size was 407 students in leadership roles of a campus organization sanctioned by the university and overseen by the Office of Student Activities. The survey was distributed via email links to the students by the Office of Student Activities, and the survey was active for 14 days. The data were downloaded in an XML file from SurveyMonkey and then uploaded to SPSS, where I conducted a correlational analysis. And again, this is a quantitative design, so that's why I've utilized correlational analysis, Pearson correlational analysis. There were some limitations going into this study. As with any study, the subjects might not tell the truth about their habits and behaviors utilizing social media. We have to account for that. Also, all the students in the study group may not have the same access to computers or cell phones, thereby impacting their ability to utilize and spend time on social media. Other limitations, the students' attitudes about the sites may be influenced by some negative incident that happened. For example, if they were a victim of cyberbullying on a particular day, that might have influenced their thoughts and feelings about social media the day that they took the survey. Conversely, they may be overwhelmingly positive about social media if they utilize social media to to prepare for an exam that they did very well on, or to prepare for a group project that they did well on, their feelings about social media could be overwhelmingly positive. Because see, this study was a snapshot in time. It was not a longitudinal analysis. And again, that's what I get into. Delimitations. These are limitations that I placed upon this. This is a snapshot in time. It does not allow for consideration of those overly positive or overly negative feelings that may happen because of some sort of event. And then also choosing a sample of 407 students in leadership-oriented programs or leadership roles could limit the ability to make broad generalizations about the entire student population. Again, I picked a best-case scenario: students in leadership roles, engaged students, students who research says were going to be mostly engaged. And then conducting a quantitative survey, which is great, a quantitative analysis, instead of a mixed use or qualitative method, would not allow for the cataloging of anecdotal descriptions of the relationships between the independent and dependent variables. Okay? Further, the study only focused on African American students at one historically black institution. Okay? That makes it difficult. All HBCUs were not created the same. And so it makes it difficult to make generalizations about how students in leadership roles at all historically black institutions utilize social media. Finally, the survey had limited choices in terms of ethnic identification, allowing students of African descent to only identify themselves as African American. So this, you have to take into account students of African descent who are international students. They were forced to choose as African American, so you have to acknowledge that as a delimitation. My research questions. Research question 1 dealt with how the students in the study group are engaged. How engaged are they with their institution? How often do they participate in activities that measure engagement or that indicate engagement? Research question 2 dealt with how do the students in the study group utilize social media for academic and social pursuits? How do they use it to, in addition to that, how do they utilize it to interact with their peers, faculty, and administration at the university? Research question 3, which is a correlational analysis, looked to determine what is the relationship between the amount of time that students spend on social media and what's the relationship with that and their satisfaction in their relationships with other students, the faculty, and the administration. Question 4 dealt with, is there a relationship between the amount of time a student spends on social media overall and the amount of time the student spends on social media for academic pursuits? Finally, the last question asked, is there a relationship between the frequency of use of social media and the year in college? I had some hypotheses going in. I believe that students in the research group, being that this is the best case scenario, will describe themselves as highly engaged with their institution. I expected that the students in the research group will report that social media played a significant role in their social and academic involvement on campus and their relationships with peers, faculty, and administration. I also hypothesized that the amount of social media used for academic activity would increase in relationship to the year in college. So what I'm saying is, my hypothesis was that as the student becomes more acclimated into the higher education environment or into the institution, the more that they would utilize social media as part of their relationships and their connections with the environment. Finally, I thought that there would be a positive correlation between the frequency of social media use, how often they use social media, and how often they use social media for academic purposes. I thought there would be a positive relationship between those two. Here's what I found. Let me give you some descriptive statistics. Again, as I said, 407 students received the survey. 135 of them responded. That's a response rate of 33.1%. It's a strong response rate. 125, or 92.5% of the respondents identified themselves as African American, And then there was a gender breakdown of roughly 73.3% female and 26.6% male. Some more descriptive statistics, and I was pleased to note that there was pretty even breakdown in terms of the year in college of the students who answered the survey. It skewed a little heavy towards the seniors, which is not surprising because these are students who are in leadership roles. So they build some stature on campus and they aspire to leadership roles the longer that they're on campus. So it's no surprise that they're more seniors than anybody else. So how engaged are they? Well, nearly 60% of the students who answered the survey describe themselves as participating in activities very often or often that are indicative of engagement. So roughly 60% of the students participate in activities often or very often that are indicative of engagement. Now, let's get into the satisfaction in relationships. There's a big difference in the satisfaction in relationships that the students in the study group report. And this is, I provide you a graph. The students were asked to rate their relationships with their students, with other students, faculty, and administration on a scale of 1 to 7, with 7 being the highest. If you look at the students, it skews pretty high here. The majority of the students reported somewhere between 4 and 7. There's a spike here roughly around 6, very, very high, around 6. So they're very satisfied with their relationships with their colleagues, with their other students, very satisfied. Amongst faculty, it's not bad, but not as high as the relationships with the students. It spikes somewhere around between 4 and 5, and then falls off. Okay, again, this is on a scale of 1 to 7, with 7 being the highest. With the administration, it skews a little bit lower, spiking somewhere around 4, which is fair to middling, but a lot of the scores towards lower than 4. Okay? And then what I provided you was a graph to sort of see how those trend lines work together. And you can obviously see the disparity here with the students, student-to-student relationships skewing very, very high. Relationships with faculty, not quite as high. Relationship with administration, low. Okay? Satisfied though, yet still. Because 62.78% of the students said the advising at the institution was excellent. It's good or excellent. So they were roughly satisfied with the level of advising that they're getting at the institution. In addition to that, almost 73% of them said that their educational experience has been good or excellent. And if given the choice to come to the same institution again, 64% of them said yes, they would definitely come to the same institution again if given the choice. So there is some satisfaction with the institution. Now, getting into the amount of time that the study group spends on social media. The majority of the students in the study group spend roughly between 1 to 3 hours a day on social media, roughly 43.7% of them. And then we've got the next largest group would be those who spend less than an hour. Okay? And then we even have some who are spending more than 5 hours a day on social media. A lot of time. And when they go to social media, what are their favorite sites? Well, Facebook still ranks #1. Okay? Followed by Twitter and Instagram. Those are the sites they like to spend most of their time with. Now, this is getting into social capital. Talk about social capital. This sort of illustrates how the students are utilizing social media to gain relationships, to build connections with people who can help get things done, who can help them in the higher education environment and perhaps assist in their persistence and their degree attainment. Almost 60% of the students said that they would decide to friend someone because they thought that the relationship would be mutually beneficial, that there's something beneficial that they would get out of having a relationship with someone, and that there was something that other person would get out of having a relationship with them. So this is a good mutual connection. In addition, nearly 60% again said that that person's connections on social media, so who they know and who they are already friends with, also heavily influences their decision on whether they want to friend somebody. So it's likely that when they look at who they have on their friend list, that makes a person desirable in terms of the decision on whether they want to be friends with them. They probably want to know, they probably want to get connected to what the people in their friend list have. They want to get that social capital, okay? Social capital. And nearly 55% of them said that a person's knowledge or skills is vital to them. But it's interesting though, that this is basically the saying, it's not so much what you know, but who you know. There it is illustrated. So how do these students utilize social media? Well, over 36% of them said that they use social media daily to connect with other students. So they're connecting every day. There's a lot of social media connecting going on. Like I said, in the classroom, what are they doing? They may be connecting with other students via social media, part of their network. 38.81% of them said that they utilize social media a few times a month to collaborate on a group assignment. So they're utilizing it, again, this illustrates they are utilizing it in the higher education environment for purposes that are related to academics. 27.4 said that they use it daily to find out about non-university events. So this sort of gets into the social aspects. Okay, maybe a party or something off campus that's not really related to the college environment. They're utilizing social media to find out about that, maybe to organize something. 20% though said that they utilize it daily for university-related events. Okay? 14.07 said they use it every day to organize an event for a student organization. Not surprising because, again, these are students who are in leadership roles in organizations, such as a fraternity or a sorority or some sort of student government-related organization. So they're utilizing social media to organize events related to what it is that they're doing. Now, this is what's interesting, and this gets into maybe where the additional learning would come. 75% of the students said that they utilize social media less than once a month to ask a professor a question. 75% said they utilize social media less than once a month to ask the professor a question. And 57.46 said that their professor or the institution has not reached out, or they don't have a connection with them via social media. Now, we have to be careful with that. That does not mean that the professor or the institution has not sought to make a connection with them via social media. It could very well be that the professor or the institution has done so, but the student has not chosen to take that connection, has not chosen to accept that friend request, or is not following the university on Twitter. Okay? So we can't assume that there's no attempt at a connection being made, but there's a breakdown here in the connection process, which we may need to look further into. Now, research question 3. So we want to get into and analyzing what is the relationship between social media use, the amount of time the students spend on social media. Is there a relationship between that and the satisfaction of their relationships with the professor, with the administration, and with other students? I ran Pearson correlational analysis and found that there was a negative correlation between the amount of time that students spend on social media and their relationships with faculty. And this is a significant relationship. Okay? If this were to be run again, 97% of the time we get roughly the same results. That's what that means. Okay? I need to state here that my survey I received 135 responses. I broke out 125, which was only, remember, those are the African American responses, because I'm interested in knowing the habits and behaviors of the African American students. So that's why the correlational analysis dealt with 125. Now, back to the analysis. There is also a negative relationship between the amount of time spent on social media and the level of satisfaction in relationships with administration. A negative 0.163. Okay, again, this is also significant. If this were run again, 97% of the time we get the same results. Now, conversely, there is a positive relationship between the amount of time spent on social media and satisfaction in relationships with other students. It's a positive relationship of 0.050. And again, this is statistically significant. If you run this, 97.7, I'm losing my numbers. 97.5% of the time would be the same. Now, how often, what is the relationship between the use of social media and the frequency of use of social media and the frequency of use of social media for academic purposes? I found that there is a very strong positive relationship between the two. This is the strongest of the relationships. Okay, it's a positive relationship of 0.261. Very strong, statistically significant. If you ran this, 99.7% of the time you get the same similar results on this. Very strong relationship between the use of social media and the use of social media for academic purposes. Now, you remember I said I wanted to know, is there a relationship between the use of social media and the year in college? What I wanted to find out is that do students try to, does their use go up as they get more assimilated into the college environment? Okay, I hypothesized that the answer would be yes. But my statistical analysis, really, they were not very significant on these. Okay, we found that year in college and frequency of use, there's a negative relationship, but in terms of statistical significance, it's kind of weak. Okay, so we really can't infer a whole lot from that. Okay, and in the year in college and frequency of use for academics, although it showed a positive relationship, again, this is weak. Okay, in terms of significance, so we really can't infer a whole lot from it. Okay, so we don't know. There's not a lot we can take from it. So, what are the implications of what I found in my study? Well, engaged students are using social media for purposes related to the higher education environment. That is indeed a fact. They're using it for homework, group assignments, to attend, and to organize events. The study showed that. The study also showed that engaged students are using social media to gain social capital. Remember, they're making decisions on who to friend based off of more of not what a person knows, but who they know. They're making connections. They're seeking a power base, okay, to gain social capital. Also, we found that when more students use social media, remember, this was the strongest correlational analysis. This was the strongest relationship. The more students utilize social media, the more they're using it for academic purposes. That's definite. The more students use social media, the more satisfied they are in relationships with other students. Okay? So they're becoming more connected to other students, and they're satisfied with their relationships with other students based off the more time they spend on social media. But the more they use social media, the less satisfied they are in their relationships with their professors and the administration. Which leads us to future research. Okay? I want to repeat this study on a larger sample of the campus population to include students who may be less engaged. Okay? I'm after generalization. Can these findings be generalized to a larger group? I want to replicate the study at 2 or more historically black institutions because, as I said earlier, all historically black institutions are not created the same. Again, seeking generalization. I want to replicate the study at a predominantly white institution to test African American students and how they are interacting and how they're utilizing social media. Again, seeking the generalization in a different environment. Finally, I would like to do a qualitative analysis to learn about how students feel regarding their relationships with professors and the administrators on social media to determine if or how they would be receptive to such connections. Again, if social media is going to be used to address this ongoing degree disparity, we've got to find out more about why this is. And so perhaps a qualitative analysis will allow for deeper investigation into the relationships that students have on social media and how receptive or how receptive they might not be to having relationships with their professors and the administration on social media sites. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Batts. I'm going to depart from what would be our normal convention at this time and allow those visitors who are in the room, if you have any questions for Mr. Batts. And then the committee will adjourn to 211 next door. We have a committee member who's on the phone with us from Yale, and we're not able to hear him, although he can hear us. And for committee deliberations, we need to all be able to talk together. So this is a little bit of a departure, but I want to give you all an opportunity to ask questions, and then committee members, we will continue our discussions next door. Are there questions, comments?
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to say that the presentation was very concise and clear, and especially since social media is quote-unquote new, as you said, between the last 10 and 15 years, it'll be interesting to see how this compares to other historically black colleges, and then, like you said, future studies at other colleges, maybe predominantly white ones. So I'm interested to see what else you come up with.
Thank you. I'm going to owe the credit to my committee, who worked very, very hard with me in this topic, because I came into this with lots of ideas about what I wanted to learn and what I thought was important. And over the process of time, they narrowed my focus. And my chair, Dr. Herring, drilled me on being concise and clear. So I have to thank you very much, but I have to give credit to my committee who worked very hard with me.
I want to make a comment. Your implications were actually your conclusions. And so you concluded those things about their use. But in terms of implications for historically black colleges, implications for what administrators and faculty members should do, you're relatively silent on that. So I'd like you to take just a moment and share with us, from the conclusions that you drew from your study, what are the implications or things that practitioners can do with that information?
Thank you. It is clear, one of the things that was pointed out, that for whatever reason, there's not a lot of connections being made on social media between the professors, the administration, and the students. Don't know why that is, okay? It could be, if I to hazard a guess, it could be just a lack of understanding about how social media is used. It could be some reluctance on professors' behalf in terms of wanting to establish relationships with students via social media. These are things that need to be studied further in future studies. What I would offer is that my study really obviously points out that students are utilizing social media for purposes that are related to the academic environment, and that, you know, if I were to, it may suggest that as practitioners, we need to study how students are utilizing social media from maybe a higher level, and giving assignments and looking at how do the students utilize social media to get the tasks done on their own related to my class, and then finding an entry point for what is the appropriate place for a professor to enter and become part of that discussion. Okay, it suggests that, you know, again, I just have a lot of questions into why there's a breakdown. Okay, because we don't know what the professor's attitudes are, and so that's something that has to be studied further to know. Okay, what are their impressions or what are their habits and behaviors with social media, and how does that align with what the student habits and behaviors are? Did that answer your question?
Thank you.
Okay. Yes.
Curious about the administrators that you used. What level did you go to? Was it all professors or staff as well?
The questions on the survey did not specify what an administrator is. It just said administration. So it didn't say if administration is financial aid, or if it's the president, it just said administration. And the same with professors, it didn't specify.
Again, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Batts. We will adjourn to 2:11 to continue the committee's deliberation. Thank you. Dr. Cohen?
I'm here.
Yeah, we'll call you back when we get to the room next door.
Okay, sounds good. Bye.
Well, now, thank you. Yeah, I'm going out to see you, Dr.
All right, all right. Outcome?
Yes, Dr. Batts, I guess I was Mr. Batts has successfully defended his dissertation. As you know, he has 7 days to do the final, turn in the final document.
Right,
A few
absolutely.
small edits,
Absolutely.
professionally edited as well.
Yes.
So in 7 days, we can call you Dr. Batts.
7 days.
Sounds good. I look forward to seeing y'all in the morning at 9 here.
Right, now I'm in the library. Yes, we look forward to having you.
Going to, yes,
All right, just wait just a second, it's almost done.
okay, well, I'll just hang around.
Okay, I know there was a question.
And keep in mind that everybody can't have the same chair. So if everybody's going to gravitate towards Dr. Holmes, she can't be everybody's committee chair.
No one will college allow me to chair everybody.
So you've got to identify who, that's key, who your chair is going to help to move you along, get the process done. And then who your committee members are, it's important. If there is one, I would say, disadvantage of an online program or hybrid program like we have, is that you don't get, is the face-to-face interaction and understanding the personalities of who your professors are. It's a disadvantage. I was sort of in a different situation because I work here and I get to know people and know personalities and how people operate. But for people who don't have that advantage, it is something that you need to be concerned about. So I would say try to get to know your professors as well as you can, because your committee has to have 3 members from here on campus, and 1 can be from outside. So I would say that would be one piece of advice. The other thing, as I said on the video, is try to think pretty early on, as in where you are in the process, what would your topic be? And how can you start to build the body of literature to support your research? Lastly, think about something that is going to advance research. Try to do something that is new and different. That's what I tried to do. And I sort of married some interests that I have, because I have a background in media, and I married my interest in media with higher ed. And invariably, a lot of the people who are in the cohort, my cohort, a lot of the research that people are interested in deals with disparities and degree attainment, and how do we help with persistence. If you talk to a lot of the people in the cohort, they'll tell you that their research, a lot of them is related to disparity. And so, which is good, and you can learn a lot from each other. I learned a lot from my colleagues as well. So those are just some key takeaways.
Before he leaves us, I have a Battinto story. I collect stories on everybody, and they allow me to tell my story. Am I allowed to tell my Battinto story?
Yes, you are.
Okay. The Battinto you see before you now is a lot more humble and teachable than he was when I encountered him in residency last summer. Last summer, he came across when I would ask him, very arrogant, very know-it-all. I already have my chair, I already know how to do this. I say, excuse me. So we had an out in the hall conversation. I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah. So first day of the residency last year, she came in and I threw out my topic. We had to tell what our topic was. And so I told my topic, and Dr. Holmes wasn't feeling it. She didn't feel as though it was there.
Because it wasn't this topic that we saw.
Yeah, no, my
it
topic
was not that. Okay.
It's changed. So.
Yes.
And so the next day, I saw her in the hall, and pretty much the attitude that I kind of had taken was like, okay, well, I had my eye on what it was that I wanted to do, had my eye on the end game, and I saw her as being a roadblock, that I was either going to go around or go over. And she basically...
Y'all hear that?
Yeah.
You want to go around or go over? Because what I would tell you is that how my approach changed is that I was focused on the end game, getting done, graduating, okay? I'm a graduated man. I'm a graduated man. I'm a graduated man. Okay. I was focused on graduating in May 2013. Well. And did not do that, as we know. But because of the change in the way my approach, I learned more about what it was that I was studying, became more engaged in the process. And this became more of an exercise in learning and growing as a researcher and as a student. And I think I'm a better expert with my subject matter now. And rather than just looking at it as an exercise in how soon can I graduate, how soon can I get out and get this done. It's not about that. And I would offer to you, if you all are just looking at it strictly on, okay, I'm trying to get out and get this done as quickly as possible. Of course, yeah, there's a point in that we do need to get out and graduate, but you've got to respect the process. This is a process that has been in existence for quite a long time. There's a lot of people who've come past these. I don't know how many of you all are in fraternities and sororities, but as I say, across these burning sands ahead of you. Okay, they've done it. Okay, and you have to respect what that process is, and so you can't shortchange it. At least not here. Now you may go somewhere else and maybe there's a different process, but here the investment of time and money and energy that you're putting into it, they're gonna get the best out of you. So focus on trying to become the best researcher that you can be and an expert with your subject matter. Because once you get that doctor, PhD behind your name, and you put your name on that research, that's yours, okay? And you don't want any junk out there with your name attached to it, because that's your reputation really is all you have. Okay? Well, and the other thing is, even though I was not on Mr. Batts' committee, he asked me and I turned it down and said no, because I did not want that direct involvement. I still helped him on a daily basis with this document. I helped prepare him for proposal defense. He comes to my office regularly, just like Kent is beginning to do. I saw him. And so I told him as a program coordinator, I'm invested in everybody. I want everybody to be successful. So even though I wasn't willing to do it in a formal way in his situation, I still did I not help get you ready for proposal defense.
Absolutely. Played a significant role. And so, really Dr. Holmes was pivotal in my development, and because again, helping me to, understand more about why I was really truly in this process and why I was invested in this process, so that I would not feel empty once I finished. I could say, okay, I could really see the difference between where I was when I started and where I am now. And it's a big difference. It's a big difference.
Very good. Y'all have any other questions for Mr. Mayor? And so the reason I wanted him to share that story is because each one of you is going to develop a story. Each one of you has a personality. Right, Paula? Each one of you got a personality. Each one of you, you know more than I know about a whole bunch. But you don't know more than I know about how to prepare 63 new doctors. And so we do have to respect the process. So I had superintendents in class, assistant superintendents in class, and I have to remind them, I need you to check your chevrons at the door. At the door. I need you to check your rank at the door. I need you to check the fact that you make 3 times